Recently, I made my wife a Bubble Head Nurse Cosplay from Silent Hill 2 in a week. This wasn't an intentional challenge, so maybe some context is needed. Long story short, we've got a local convention in our area that we go to every year called Sci-Fi ValleyCon. And I tend to make new costumes for this almost every year. But this last year, I wasn't really planning on making anything. I was busy making template videos showing people how to make Pyramid Head's great knife and his helmet. But after I made those two, I figured I might as well just finish the whole costume, so I made the apron as well. And all of a sudden, now I had a new costume to wear to the convention. And on top of that, I finished the costume early, by about a week before the show. So I asked my wife if she wanted to dress up with me. I thought maybe we could thrift a simple costume, something to go along with my Pyramid Head. Like a Mary costume. It's pretty simple, just a pink and white dress. But she said she wanted to be a Bubble Head nurse. And I only had a week to put it together. A week to make the outfit, the mask, and the accessories. This was going to be a challenge. Before I dive too deep into this project, I figured I'd start with the hardest part first, the mask. My idea was, if I couldn't get this portion right, then I wouldn't waste my time or money on the rest of the costume. Now, full disclaimer, I already have 2 in-depth build videos on how to make a Bubblehead Nurse mask using the template I made from this project. So I'm not going to go in-depth on these again. Instead, I'll focus more on how I made that original template, and then we'll kind of rapid fire through the assembly of that original mask. But if you want to know how to use the template and build these masks, I'll leave a link in the description for those videos. So anyway, on to the build. I started building this mask the same way I do a lot of my projects, and that's with a cardboard template. This is a very simple method. I started by tracing the front and side profile of my wife's head, drew out the mask over top, cut those out, transferred that shape to cardboard, taped the front and side pieces together, and then started building the shape with more cardboard. From there, I wrapped the cardboard model up in tape to finish the shape, so I can move on to making the template. And we have our cardboard 3D model. This will be the base for our template making process. Basically what we'll be doing is wrapping this in plastic wrap, and then again in duct tape, and then that will be the base of our template. I'll talk about this a little bit. So this is the front half. The little flappy ears or whatever they have is the center dividing line, which will be the front half of the mask. The mouth is open. It's a very hard detail to see, but in the original version from the 2001 game, behind all of the obscuring mess on the mouth, there is something in the mouth. So it's kind of like a small mouth that's kind of open, and it looks like there's like a ball inside of the mouth. If you're familiar with the Art of Silent Hill videos, especially Fukuro, then you're probably familiar with the intro to that video where there's a mouth that opens and closes, and there's kind of some kind of ball or eyeball in that mouth. It's a very similar concept here. I don't know if there's a correlation between the two, but considering Fukuro used assets from Silent Hill 2, who knows? But it is what's in the 3D model of the original Bubblehead nurses. So I put that here. Whether you want to fill that in with something in the end, that's up to you, but it can be used to help with airflow as well. So I included it, is what it is. While this isn't a comparison between the original and the remake, there's also a difference in the chin between those two models. In the original, there's a human chin underneath the actual chin of the mask, almost like they're wearing a mask. But then in the remake, it's just the one chin and just goes straight down to the neck. Not anything to be concerned about, but if you're going for accuracy on one or the other, it is something to look out for. But anyway, on to making our template. Now that we have our 3D head, it's time to start making a template. This will be your standard duct tape template. I started by wrapping the head in plastic wrap, and then again in duct tape. Once I had it covered, I then started drawing my cut lines. This is hard to describe how I choose where to make these. This kind of runs off of experience, but I need to be able to transform this 3D model into a 2D flat image. So I'm finding the sharp edges, the hard curves, and finding a good place to choose where I want my cuts to be. I then cut those pieces free to lay them down flat, so that I could transfer my template pieces to paper. And of course, Sable had to help. From here, I explain this process in greater detail in those nurse mask videos that I previously mentioned. I traced my template to 5mm EVA foam, cut those out with the required angle cuts, and bonded the pieces together with some contact cement. This made the base shape of the front of the face. From there, I needed to make the back half of the head. This was the exact same process all over again. I used the same front and side profile pictures I had from before, transferred that to cardboard, and started building the shape for the back of the head. I made another duct tape template, and then transferred that to 5mm EVA foam. I then cut those pieces out, and with some contact cement, press those pieces all together. From here, I did some cleanup. I used my road rake tool to clean up some seams and round off some edges. I also used a heat gun to help round off some of the shapes. And then I inserted the ball in the mouth, which kinda looks like some cartoon teeth. Then came time for foam clay. I used this to bring out some details, like the lips, and to cover some seams, and to shape the nose. Again, I covered this process in depth in the mask build videos. And with that all on, I had to let the foam clay sit for at least a few hours before I could touch it again. I did use a heat gun to try and speed up the drying process, but I didn't try to overbake it. Just enough to get rid of the stickiness. While that was drying, I started working on the nurse cap. I bought a cheap cap off of Amazon and used it as my template to make a cap out of foam. I mainly did this because the shape I needed specifically for this nurse wasn't something you could just buy. So I figured it was a lot easier to make it out of foam, using a real cap as the base for my design. The idea for this was to have the full cap glued to the back of the head, and then have the front flap of the cap be attached to the front half of the head, which you can kind of see me mock up here. And once I had the size and shape I needed, I used some contact cement and glued that on. Together, they look pretty good. At this point, I started working on the internal support, using some random cushion foam. I also cut some holes in the mask to help my wife see. This would lead to some creative decisions later to help with her visibility, as bubblehead nurses aren't supposed to have eyes. From there, it was time to prep for paint. I used some sealer to fill in some corners, cracks, and any uneven seams. And with that dry, I took it outside for a coat of Plasti Dip. And then came paint, starting with a base coat of white. From there, I had this weird idea to cover the face in fabric. My thought process was that the fabric would help cover her eyes and hopefully cover the eye holes in the mask. I did this in several layers with some adhesive spray and some careful stretching of the fabric. In between each layer, I then gave the fabric a layer of Mod Podge and paint. And I did this over and over. This effect in the end actually did look kinda neat, although everyone thought it was paper mache until we showed them the inside. The eye holes also were not covered that well either, and unfortunately, any more layers of fabric would have made it impossible for my wife to see. But with that all done, I moved on to shading and coloring the rest of the mask. Filling in the green line on the cap, and using some black to outline the edges, mimicking those harsh shadows baked into the in-game textures. And using some hot glue, I glued in some elastic straps in the top seam of the front and back half of the mask. This will help fasten the front half of the mask onto the back and make it easier to take on and off. And there we have it. This is the finished original mask before I made any modifications for the more accurate looking new versions. This one here is the one that the template is based on. This was more or less, I guess you could consider it a original mock-up. But again, if you want to see these, links in the description. We're here to talk about this mess. So texture-wise, I think it turned out kind of okay. I did like the textures that I got with it, especially with wrapping all the fabric, the Mod Podge, and the layered paint. It did have a very cool effect. A lot of the wrinkles, though, kind of makes it look like paper mache. And of course, the problem is you can still see the eyes. As I had mentioned with the opening in the mouth, I had replaced the portion here. I removed the actual foam and just put in fabric. This helped with airflow a lot more, so it was easier for her to breathe. And then, of course, she could see. The way this works, obviously my head is way too big to actually try this on, but the front and back separates. The elastic is only in the top center, so you can more or less slide this back on the back of your head and close it in front. Very cool. But anyway, now we're gonna move on to the dress. For the dress, this wasn't something I could just thrift. despite what you see in a lot of Silent Hill nurse cosplays, in the original game, the outfits that the nurses wear is kind of like a one-piece dress. There's no seam or button down the front, center, or back, which means I'll have to make a template for this too. We started by mocking up the shape of the collar. We just used some sheets of paper, and I drew out the shape. And of course, Sable had to beg for attention. With the collar figured out, came the dress. I chose to do a duct tape template for this to figure out the pattern because the nurse outfits from the original games aren't really something you can buy. There's no front seam like you see in most Silent Hill nurse costumes. It's more like a one-piece dress with a waistband. And instead of trying to hunt something down, I figured it'd just be faster to make a template and sew it. Once we got the template made, came time to transfer that to fabric. And of course, Sable had to help. While the dress is a one piece, I still gave it a seam in the middle to help with the shape. The waistband will cover this up anyway, so it won't be seen. And with all those pieces traced out, came the long, tedious task of cutting everything out and sewing it together. I didn't have enough fabric to do what I wanted, which was double up the layers. The stretchy fabric that I'm using is very thin, so I used a different stretchy fabric for underneath. I wanted to do this for a few reasons. One, thin fabric has a tendency to show details underneath, like bra lines. And two, the fabric on the in-game model already looks kind of thick on its own, almost as if the dress is made out of leather. And the fabric I'll be using on the outer layers will have that kind of a shine to it. I had already done some paint tests before tracing my pattern, and the shiny side of the fabric held paint the best, so later when it comes time to weathering, the paint can hold on real nice and thick. I will note that while this does seem like a lot of work, all this sewing was really done in just one night. Sable always wants to get involved with my crafting too, so I'm always insanely mindful of where she is and what she's doing. After I collect my sewing pins from doing a portion of the dress, I make sure to check the floor and surrounding areas for any pins that might have come loose and fell on the floor. Now that the first pass of sewing is almost done, I left the back fully open because we'll need this thing to be somewhat tight, but still be able to slip on over top. So we'll figure that out with a test fit. We more or less just tried it on, and I started figuring out how tight it needed to be, and marked that along the back seam. Then back to the table to pin that new seam, and off to the sewing machine to sew that all together. To make this a little easier to put on and take off, I added a zipper along the back of the top half. On the in-game model, there's a lot of black shadows down the back center, so I can match that and hide the zipper when I go to paint and stain the dress. From here, the only thing left really to sew was the waistband. I was running really low on fabric here, but I also needed to make sure that the waistband didn't have any sew lines in it either. I did this by overlapping and sewing together my two fabrics, and then pulling the whole thing through inside out, which was a little harder than it looks here, but I got it. And then back to another test fit. Just to make things easier, I sewed the waistband in the front center of the dress. This will help prevent it from riding up or down. I could have done this with Velcro too, but I guess at least now we won't lose it anywhere. What I'm doing in this test fit though, is seeing how long the band needs to be, and where it'll overlap in the back. I'll be using replacement bra hooks to secure this in place. And with that figured out, over to the sewing machine to sew them on. And on to the home stretch, time for paint. We chose to use a bodysuit over body paint because this would just be easier for a quick costume than using a ton of makeup. Plus, my wife has a ton of tattoos. This bodysuit was a basic gray bodysuit from Amazon. We chose to style with a full head covering because the nurse's chest and neck are exposed. Plus, it makes it easier for her to hold her hair back instead of wearing a hairnet for the mask. If you watched my Pyramid Head cosplay build video, then this is the same exact paint process. I blacked out along all the edges from the costume, and used a sponge with some browns and blacks to contour muscle, apply shading, and just get things looking dirty. For the dress, I tried to mimic the patterns of the actual in-game model. I started with light browns, staining the whole dress, and then slowly worked my way up with darker and darker colors, with a medium brown, then a dark brown, and then finally black. With the dress and bodysuit painted, there was just one little detail left, and that's the name tag. I used some leftover thermoplastic and a pin. I just heated up a small piece of plastic over top of the pin to hold the pin in place. And then with some acrylic paint, I did my best to replicate the name tag. In the in-game model, there's obviously no name written down, so I figured I could take advantage of this opportunity for some self-promotion. And with that, the nurse cosplay is complete. So. Okay, I'm gonna need you to get down, okay? Wow. And with that, the nurse cosplay is complete. And to show it off, I guess we're gonna need a skit. I'll go wander around the hospital for a bit.
Paranormal Cosplay Chasers!
Hey everybody, we're at the Brookhaven Hospital in Silent Hill. This facility has a really dark history. Originally, it was built as a response to an epidemic in the town. Then after that, it was rebuilt again as a response to another epidemic in the town. And then after that, it was converted into a mental asylum. And on top of that, it now sits abandoned. Just like the rest of the town, but still abandoned. Making this place a prime candidate for some paranormal cosplay activity. Let's go inside and take a look.
Paranormal Cosplay Chasers!
Okay, we are inside. It's already really spooky. So not only they say this place is haunted, but it might be inhabited by monsters. What was that? Oh, just a cat. What's a cat doing in here? Oh, cool. This thing still works?
Paranormal Cosplay Chasers.
This device is my favorite tool for detecting paranormal cosplay. If there's a cosplay in this hospital, this thing here will let me know. Just gotta find a good spot to use it. Alright, I have my scanner. This thing should lead us to a spot where we can commune with a cosplay. I think we're getting something.
Paranormal Cosplay Chasers.
The way this device works, it scans through the radio and then answers my questions through the radio. Apparently ghost hunters think this actually works, so let's give it a try. Is there a cosplay in this hospital? Is there a cosplay in this hospital? I'm here. It said I'm here. I think we made contact. Are you here? I would love to see your cosplay. Oh. I mean, I have cosplay too. Okay, this is getting kind of freaky. Perfect fit. Basement. Is your cosplay in the basement? Must not be working anymore. Well, I'll check out that basement.
Paranormal Cosplay Chasers.
Okay, we are down in the basement. Oh, neat. The lights still work. That's not a good sign.
Paranormal Cosplay Chasers.
Oh my god, it's real. It's a real cosplay. Cosplay is real. There's real cosplay. It's real. Oh my god, it's real. I can't believe it. It's actually real. Hey, it's that cat. Hey.
Paranormal Cosplay Chasers.
Look out, ghouls, we're here for you. You're sneaking around in a real dark room. Gonna check you out when we flip the breaker. We're paranormal
Cosplay Chasers.
Have you seen my craft supplies? The costume of yours, it's all mine. I made it out of foam and fabric. I'm afraid I have a real bad habit of chasing you. I'm a real heartbreaker. We're paranormal
Cosplay Chasers.
chasing you.
Chasing me.
Chasing you.
Chasing me.
Chasing me.
Chasing me.
Chasing. Now this cosplay is all alive. She's on to me. She says you're all mine. I tried to run. I tried to hide. She says she wants me by her side. I might give in. I might just take her. We're paranormal
Cosplay Chasers.
chasing you.
Chasing me.
Chasing you.
Chasing me.
Chasing you.
Chasing me.
Chasing you.
Chasing me.
Now we're on the run and she's not far behind. No matter where I go, she's sure to find. She's got me so confused. The roles have been reversed. Now I'm being chased
By a cosplay nurse.
I don't know where to go. I think should embrace her. My paranormal
Cosplay Chasers.
I'll see you all in the next one.